Hello there, so learning to map isn't easy. To become a mapper, you need to do research and understand concepts maps use, then put those concepts into practice repeatedly until doing so becomes second nature. It's fairly normal for a mapper to spend months or even years to create anything of value, and that's assuming they don't give up partway through. Why is it so hard to become a mapper? Of course, every person is different, yet for almost everyone, progression as a mapper is generally the same. Understanding the process most mappers go through explains why it's so hard to become a mapper, so let's talk about it. The first tier in a mapper's development is the new mapper tier. New mappers try to create maps given the knowledge they've absorbed while playing, but they don't exactly know how. There's so many obstacles in the way and an alarming lack of resources available that it's straight up unrealistic to advance without a lot of dedication. The first thing new mappers need to fully understand is the editor. Most of its content is actually straightforward, but the issue is more so how much content there is. Having freedom is nice, having too much freedom though, that can be intimidating. As an active mapper, there's stuff here that I use all the time, and others that I haven't touched in months because they're just not necessary. A new mapper wouldn't know what tools to prioritize over others, nor how those important tools work best. Conveniently though, editor functionality is what most of OSU's tutorial content covers. If you're wondering what a certain option does, you can find an answer pretty quickly by just Googling it. That being said, the editor is the easier obstacle for new mappers. What's truly challenging is creating a map. Expressing one's thoughts and the music through circles and sliders is mapping in a nutshell, but unfortunately, new mappers don't have the right mindset to do that. The most important influence new mappers have is what they've experienced in gameplay, and that's not quite enough to create a solid map. Think about it like this. To make an elevator come up in this game, I need to pull a lever. Oh, there's a lever. How about I pull it? As just a casual player, that's all I'm really thinking about, but there's a little more to it than that. A light is shining here to make the lever stand out and draw me towards it. Some game developer guy had to actually think about why to put a light here, where there's actually no light source. A new mapper only thinks about pulling the lever, while they need to think about what makes a player want to pull the lever. Unlike editor basics, researching how to express ideas through mapping isn't practical at all. If someone wanted to learn how to structure a map, they couldn't just Google it. Sure, I've got videos about structure, but I've had tons of mappers tell me they never think about what I discuss in these videos. Getting a straight answer about what a mapping concept entails is impossible, since there's tons of ways to express an idea, and what's best varies from person to person. This new mapper stage is where most aspiring mappers give up. If it's not because they can't learn the intricacies of the editor, it's because there's no clear way to improve a map. New mappers are essentially stuck. That is, unless they're motivated enough to work through it and move on to the next tier of being a mapper, the beginner mapper tier. A huge part of mapping is community involvement. In order to improve their mapping, mappers ask other mappers for feedback in the form of mods. This is where new mappers can develop ideas about what makes a map good through constructive criticism. But obviously, just like everything else in mapping, this isn't easy or highly effective by any means. Getting mods from people who are capable of helping is essentially like asking someone for a private tutoring session, while 500 other people do the same. As just another insignificant person in the crowd, there's next to no chance of success. The only option to get mods is from other mappers who don't really know what they're doing either, and that means you'll be given feedback that could very easily be misleading. As you'd guess, this ambiguous idea about how to advance further gets a lot of mappers stuck and causes them to give up on mapping altogether. Sound familiar? There is hope though. Even if early on mods aren't entirely useful, there's still some beneficial advice in them. By receiving enough mods, which open mappers up to different possibilities, mappers do steadily understand what's important and then ultimately improve. The more a mapper improves, the more likely they are to receive mods from experienced modders and mappers, and the more likely they are to rank a map. All thanks to feedback from the mapping and modding community. Isn't it great? You'd think ranking a map is the end of a mapper's development, but it's definitely not. This is where mappers enter the next tier, the proficient mapper tier. When a map is ranked, it gets more exposure than the vast majority of unranked maps. It doesn't matter if the map is great or terrible, players will play it, and some will inevitably give their thoughts on it. One of the best feelings as a mapper is to get positive feedback on hard work. In the discuss sections of every map, you'll see comments like, "Beautiful, love this map. We need more of pishifat maps. These kinds of comments motivate mappers to create more maps in a similar fashion, since getting more praise feels great. If a map is, I guess, bad or controversial in any way though, it'll often get comments like, "Why are maps these days so bad? Awful mapping. Who ranked this shit? Oh my god." Players giving feedback like this is, as you'd guess, really demotivating. Receiving praise feels a lot better than receiving hate, so most mappers at this stage create maps with the player's feedback in mind, along with the mapper's feedback. If they don't, they may lose interest in mapping because being hated just isn't very fun. By this point, mappers create maps with a lot less personal expression than when they first started. New mappers base their maps off of what they enjoy, but mappers at this level have been influenced by both mappers and players, and therefore map with both of these groups in mind. It's like reaching equilibrium with everyone, which is good and bad in its own ways. There's no real reason for a mapper to change their way of mapping at this stage because it satisfies as many players and mappers as possible. However, by not improving, mapping gets really stale. Every newly ranked map gets praised, but that praise is less and less satisfying after every experience, resulting in mappers growing bored of mapping and then quitting. The second path mappers take from here though is advancing beyond equilibrium. It starts out pretty much the same. Mappers make a bunch of maps that are really similar, then get less satisfied with each one. These mappers are getting bored of mapping for the masses, but they don't want to quit. Instead, they start experimenting with different ideas and don't take into consideration what kind of feedback they may receive. So what if players don't like a map? They don't think about why objects are placed, they don't think about the light on the lever. What these people praise or criticize doesn't have enough weight to affect mappers at this point. If someone can reach this stage, they can make, in my opinion, the best maps. I criticize a lot of Monstrata's maps in my videos, but to me, his maps have value. More value than those of mappers who create maps widely considered the highest quality, yet are only rehashes of the same ideas synced to different songs. And here is where mapper development gets hard to describe. Every map at this stage is a form of development in itself, and describing how most mappers change from here is kind of impossible because everyone pursues different things. So yeah, the progression most mappers go through. Sounds like useless trivia, but I think knowing this could help out if you're ever feeling stuck at one of these stages. Every mapper experiences something similar. It's just a natural part of evolving as a mapper. If you're frustrated by the unclear goals of being a new mapper, just remember that everyone goes through the same thing, and those who are most motivated to improve are able to progress.